Hi, everyone, and welcome to weeks 8 and 9 of the course. We're kind of hitting the home stretch and we're changing up the content and type of reading to something that hopefully you'll find really engaging and directly related to the work you're doing in your professional lives or in your academic work. So the next 2 weeks, we're going to be reading Spreadable Media, Creating Value and Meaning in Networked Culture. I'm looking forward to this. It's not a book I've discussed with peers and colleagues, and I'm really excited to, I've been reading it and really excited to hear what we're all going to get out of this. So this presentation is a guide to, like a reading guide for the book. It's not full notes, but as you'll see, there are book reviews and there is a huge supplemental website if you'd like to get more information. So let's go a little bit into the authors. So our first author is Henry Jenkins, and some of you may have read his works before or heard his name. He's a scholar of fans and fandoms, and for the past 2 decades, he's been a pioneer in the study of participatory culture, which discusses the ways in which consumers co-create media alongside powerful media conglomerates who create mediated content. We've talked a lot about this throughout the quarter without quite using this term. So we've been talking about participatory or user-generated content versus content that's created by organizations. And strategic communications, branded communication and marketing is different, both economically and in terms of aims, goals, and strategies than user-generated content. But there are overlaps, as we started to talk about a lot in the last week, in week 6. So the next author is Sam Ford, and he's the PR practitioner in this group. So he brings an industry lens to the study of media and draws our attention to the practice of marketing and PR and what is referred to as networked culture. And then finally, we have Joshua Green, and he's an Australian academic and digital media strategist who blends media studies and the practice of PR and marketing. So he's an academic who's taken his knowledge and experience to the private sector. So why are we reading this book? And why now in the course? Jenkins' roots are in cultural studies, and this book, Spreadable Media, draws on all or most of the theories that we've covered in this class. It brings together mass communication, media studies, and the worldviews behind these theories and blends them with the practice of PR and marketing. So really taking the theoretical over time and bringing it into the present day. And I know many of you are taking this course trying to also turn it into a practical application. So hopefully this will be of interest to you, and for those who are maybe considering a more academic or research-based course, this should also be really informative about how researchers and academics can make their research more consumable or more attractive and really generate interest among a wider audience than just academics, which is something that can be limiting. And then we're all daily consumers and creators of mediated communication, so I imagine there's a lot of interest for all of us. So it takes an optimistic take on the topic, and it's concerned with public agency. So that's you, that's me, and it's easy to read, it's accessible, and can be seen as the cherry on top of the class. So this is a convergence of all the themes we've covered into a present-day conversation about the media we surround ourselves with every day. All right, the key concept of the book is spreadability. Spreadable media refers to the potential, both technical and cultural, for audiences to share content for their own purposes, sometimes with the permissions of rights holders, sometimes against their wishes. This is contrary to stickiness, which complicates the relationship between commercial producers and non-commercial producers, and it highlights the ways that content flows and debunks the idea of memes and going viral. So it's an interesting concept. Hopefully, if you've started reading it or you're about to start reading it, this was really a unique way of looking at that content that everyone's hoping for, which is the viral content that goes, and kind of really looks at what makes content spread and have impact. All right, so week 8 we're going to cover, that's this week. There's a section of the book called How to Read This Book. We'll read the introduction and chapters 1 and 3. Things to notice and pay attention to include that the book is written with multiple audiences in mind. So it's for scholars, professionals, and creators and sharers of media content. For most audiences, the book is presented in an unorthodox way, so that's a cue that this isn't an ordinary academic text. If you are looking for more theoretical treatment of these themes, then you can check out spreadablemedia.org/essays for supplemental papers that might be useful for your final paper or for your personal and professional development. So what do they mean by spreadability? Keep that in mind. Why are they using this concept? And what does it achieve for the authors and the readers they have in mind? I encourage you to look for the theoretical influences throughout the chapters, and these aren't explicit, but you'll find them under the surface throughout the book. Participatory culture is deeply rooted in cultural studies concern for audiences, and the economics of media consumption is rooted in political economy, and that's concerned with the exploitation of audiences, which is driven from critical theory. So you'll definitely see those theoretical influences, and I'm sure quite a few others. And then finally, the shift from audiences to publics is a move toward pragmatists like Dewey and Bernays. So the main themes in the first part of the book are spreadability, so how value and meaning are created in today's network culture. So looking at questions of the engagement or exploitation of audience labor. And in chapter 3, we're looking at consumer-producer relationships and audience engagement. In week 9, we're going to look at chapters 4, 5, and 7. So this is your mini lecture for both weeks. And in chapter 4, we'll look at, what can constitute meaningful participation. So we're shifting from audiences to publics, and what do they have to say about the relationship between spreadable media and democratization. In chapter 5, which is designing for spreadability, we're looking at a how-to guide for practitioners. So for marketers, social media managers, activists, and influencers. And then in chapter 7, the chapter Transnational Spreadability, the importance of transnational media flows, yet their marginalized status remains. So here I ask you to think about political economy, the Moscow readings, and spatialization. And finally, consider cultural studies, the Benet Weiser reading, and cultural production. To sum it all up, I want to just let you know that these are the references for this slide, so both the book itself and a couple of book reviews. And hopefully if you have any questions, you can email me directly, or we'll just bring those out in the discussion threads. And I hope you enjoy this book and digging into it over the next 2 weeks.